Hello, welcome back to another episode of Back to Hoops. This is our second part on coaching questions that people have had for us. As always, I'm joined by James and Jay, who hopefully know a thing or two about some of the questions I'm going to be asking them today. Let's kick straight off with, can't remember where it came from, but it was on our Facebook page. Multiple teams within a club. How are you approaching training them differently? I think great people to ask, seeing as it's a two-team club that obviously you guys both are part of as well. James, do you want to go first on this one?
Sure. So the way we've always approached it at Raptors is we try not to be Raptors and Megs at training. We try to do everything as a collective, as a group, like as a pool of 40, 50 players, whatever. And then that way people are constantly playing for their spots rather than being set for first team, second team. Now, yeah, there might be the players that are on those teams more often than not. And so like someone like Lucy, very unlikely to be a Meg, for sure. But when we're at training, we are one club, not our teams. And that's helpful in terms of trying to get people to push for those spots on the first team and also remove some of the issues around those people who didn't get selected for a given roster, especially as we don't often bring 21 players on a roster to a tournament. So those people otherwise might feel left out. So that's essentially a club ethos that we have, and I think that's quite helpful. In terms of practicalities of dealing with people with varying skill sets, I think on the whole, you just got to be mindful of it when you're coaching them, thinking about actually, while you might want to hold everyone to a set standard, some people are going to struggle with that. You're going to need to give more support to those players. The drills you do, the activities you do, being worked as something that everybody can access. So giving a drill that everybody can get involved in at the start as a baseline. And then for your more confident or competent players, you can progress it within the drill itself. So maybe you add in a defender earlier for your better players, so they're accelerating it through. And you can kind of set that up essentially for the players themselves to decide what level of challenge they're looking for there. So, because it might be that actually this person's really good at this one aspect of the game, even if another aspect they're not necessarily good at. So, yeah, you could have it. If you want to be at challenge 3, you're going to beat 2 defenders in this drill. At challenge 2, you're going to play 1 defender. And at challenge 1, you're going to have no defenders. You're just practicing the core skill. And the player can decide to build it in that way for themselves. That being said, there is obviously benefits to playing and practicing within your groups. If you're a player that's consistently not being rostered, the time spent practicing with somebody is taken away from somebody else. So it is a balancing act, but where possible, I try to do everything together. Jay?
Yeah, so just 2 points, really. I think I completely agree with the differentiation. But you don't want to make it super obvious just for people's morale. I think James is right about having sort of levels within the same drill. Even if that does mean, so I'm aware that like Unspeakables has 3 teams that vary in talent and ability. And I know they split off into their teams and do their own individual drills that are tailored for their skill set. And I think that's really good. But I think it's very rare you'll have a club where the first team and the second team play completely differently. I think maybe the second team may do a more simplistic version of the first team. But at the end of the day, your second team shouldn't just stay as a second team. They should be fighting for that first team place. And they should be trying to make the first team. So them training the same skills is important. The other thing I would say, it's back to a point that I made in the first video and something I will harp on about for ages. It's just leaders within teams and having those strong leaders. I think differentiation is great. If you've got 40 people, one coach can't look after everyone. So that's when you want to be saying to your leaders, to your captains, your influential players, you're going to help run this drill. And even if they're not running it, saying it's your job to support people through this drill, your job to give feedback, your job to say, no, well done, your job to give pointers. Because say I've got a drill differentiated 3 ways and I'm the coach, I want to try and be able to look at everyone. But if I know I've got a leader in each of those groups who basically is going to stop people messing around and keep people focused, then that's invaluable as a coach. So having those conversations beforehand, one-to-one, saying, you know, you're gonna be my leader for that drill is great. Eventually, especially at a high level or a very close club, those leaders just step up very, very naturally and sort of appreciate that it's their role to lead their group. But that conversation is really important. The fact that a coach values you as a leader is really empowering for a player and will definitely make your drills run better if someone feels responsible for their group's outcome.
The other way of doing it, so sometimes splitting off is, as I say, fine. I like I say, I would prefer everyone to be together as long as there's not a massive difference and the people pick the level of difficulty based on their confidence in what they're doing. So I'm going to pick. Sorry.
I was going to say, even with that, you're going to have leaders within like that.
Oh yeah. I'm not. That was a different point. Sorry. If you do need to split off, so maybe if you have a third team and they are playing at a way lower level than the rest of your squad, having those leaders in place means you can replicate the drill, splitting it sort of the player base in half, or whatever. But you can replicate that and being able to leave your leaders in charge of your more confident players and spending more time with your less confident players will bring everybody up to the same page quicker. It's one of the reasons why I actively encourage people next year when the split happens for people on university teams to come over to the community fixtures and pick up stuff from those teams, because you learn by watching people who are better than you play. And if you do everything in isolation, if your team just split off and go first over here, seconds there, thirds there, you don't get that opportunity to learn from each other. And like, it might well be that someone in your seconds team is phenomenal at one aspect of the game, and they would benefit the rest of the club by sharing that. So maybe you have someone who's really good at shooting, but the rest of their game isn't good enough to be on the first team. If you just palm them off to the second team training, the first team people aren't going to learn about their shooting techniques, and that will not be beneficial to your club. That was what I was going to say.
Can I just ask, if obviously, I mean, you're kind of in a lucky position where the first and the second team with Raptors are
Decent.
but obviously they're definitely in the probably about 5 or 6 places between them. What if so obviously that's great for us to mix together. If though you had a first team that was, I don't know, one of the best, but then your second team is, you know, definitely towards the lower end of that sort of ranking, do you think then that would lean into the second option that you were saying there, James?
It does. Maybe, honestly, I'd still run. So an example would be when Oxford had Chimeras and Quidlings. The gap between those two teams was quite stark, especially in the last couple of years of having the split. It depends what your second team player base or your club wants. Like, if those players are there because they want to play for chill times and it's like super casual and they don't really want to develop in the same way, then yes, maybe splitting off is okay, that's fine. If they're trying to improve, if their aim and desire is to be in the first team, regardless of how good they are and how far away they are from it, if they want to get into the first team, I think they should train like and with the first team. If they don't want that, if they don't have that ambition, then no, they don't need to, and potentially actually it'd be more beneficial to be separate, because then the attitude doesn't clash with each other and you don't get other issues. But at the end of the day, good Quidditch is good Quidditch. If you think it's good enough for one person, it should be good enough for the others.
Yeah, I think something that's really important when you are training together is that sort of, even though some people, their ability might not be there, that everyone's held to the same effort standard. So a book that I read by Ben Ryan, a quote that he says that's like really stuck with me in terms of like how I live my life is the standard you walk past is the standard you become. which is basically whatever you let fly, that's what you're saying is the acceptable. And if your captain, your leaders, your coaches are letting something fly, why shouldn't everyone else? And I think that's what is really important with a seconds team, is that your first team players don't sort of slack off if they're with the seconds team players or with the developing players, because that's a really bad image, and it's also really bad for their development. A story that made me think about this, it wasn't even at my club. I was training with Unspeakables once, and it was like me, McCartney, Ollie Barker, and Fabian or something. So like, and Rudy. Rudy was there. It was me, Barker, and Rudy. All people that are way more athletic than I am. And we were just doing a simple passing drill. And Rudy, like, caught the ball, good take, and sort of jogged. And I was like, Rudy, I know it's not my club, man, but, like, shouldn't you be sprinting to catch the ball? And he went, well, you've not sprint once, and you're one of the coaches of the UK, so why should I? And I think that's the sort of example that you have to take. And from that point, you've got to accept that wherever you go, whether it's in your club or wherever you decide to train, you know, you've got to set the standard for yourself, because you can hold other people to account. And your first team should be holding your second team to account, and your second team should definitely be holding your first team to account. And I did sprint after that. So it was, well, yeah. I called it sprinting. Well, it was a fast
It was
walk.
good effort for you. That's fine.
It was
That's what
good
effort for you is the important thing. I don't care how good you are. You just need to put effort in.
Yeah. Yeah. Lots of ideas, information. And that was, yeah, I wasn't expecting so many different ideas. That's good. Yeah, nice one. Okay, so yeah, it's all right. I don't know why I keep standing surprised when you give me good answers. Okay, so something that, pardon?
No, it's fine.
Something that has come straight out of the level up questions is talking about how do you deal with players with more confidence, so extremely confident players as a coach, and then also afterwards we'll come to the players that are lacking confidence as well. So if we start with confident players first, let's go with you, Jay.
So I think the main thing to look at is what's confidence, what's arrogance, and if you're going to draw it as a graph, how much do people trust this person? And it's really, usually, like if you go into any team or any business and say, who's the arsehole? It's usually going to be the very confident, probably very able person. But if they're actually the arsehole, they're not going to be the person who's trusted. And I think it's important to bear in mind that most coaches, most players would rather have someone that had less ability that they trusted than someone that was high ability, high confidence that they didn't trust. When you're dealing with someone's confidence, the other thing you got to think about is, can they back it up? And that's when it, treads into arrogance. And for me, that's when you either have to say, you need to tone it down, you're not helping, or sort of go along the lines of, maybe, I know you understand this better than everyone else. I know training might be a little bit easy for you. What can we do to stretch you? Or what can you do to support everyone else? Because at the end of the day, it's a team invasion game. You can't win it on your own. So it's about finding a role for that person. People are usually arrogant because they think it's too easy. It might not be too easy, but you have to find a way to challenge them. And I like to try and think of finding a way to have that person feel involved. They don't need to be making decisions. But you have to find out where this behaviour is coming from. Is it boredom? Is that why they're doing it? Then you have to find a reason. If this person's super obnoxious, so they're overconfident, but they can't back it up, that's when you've got to chop down the tree a little bit and say, I know you think you're great, but actually your attitude isn't helping and your performance isn't replicating it. It really does depend on the type of confident person. But your confident, able player is such a useful resource as an example, as a role model, someone that you can build into being a leader. But as a coach, it's your job to try and cut out arrogance in those players, call them out on it, nip it in the bud. Because trust me, if I'm coaching someone talks over me once and I let it slide, as in I do nothing, why shouldn't they just talk over me again? Whereas if they try and talk over me and say, I know there's time for your point, but I'm speaking now, you're setting the standard of what's expected. Okay, confidence is fine, but arrogance can't be allowed to interfere with your training. James, do you have any additional?
I do.
Lovely.
Shocking. So I always read those kind of questions as it being overconfidence, as in to the point of being they're overstepping the mark, and how do you deal with it in that situation? And I think that happens at both community and university teams. For community teams, it's often people who've played for a very long time and think they know what's right, and so want to share that opinion. And we've been on teams where that has happened. And then for university teams, it's often, I find, very new players who have just joined the team, who have perhaps played other sports, and so think, because I was adequate at this other thing, I must be right about this new thing that I've not really tried yet. And so I would approach it as being overconfident. To that end, I think a way of alleviating those issues is something I said earlier, which is where you have your discussion about what you're going to be doing in the session earlier. So those people who might think, oh, this is too easy, or I don't want to do this, can have their point then, and you can start factoring in ideas ahead of time, what you're going to do with them at the session. If your drills and things follow a progression, and there is a way of increasing the complexity or the difficulty or the intensity or whatever, then if they're being arrogant because they're bored, or over cocky because they're bored and they're finding it too easy, then you've already got a natural position for that to alleviate, so you can build on it already. So that kind of fixes that issue, I think. Jay's right about setting the standard. You need to be confident in your, and it links to the second part of it, when you're actually lacking in confidence yourself, because it's always relative to the other person. You need to have confidence in the fact that you've been selected, voted for, picked, whatever, for your role, and you have the backing of the team in these situations with this person who's potentially overstepping the mark. So giving people forums where they can share their opinion, can give you feedback, is helpful, but being confrontational, being obnoxious isn't one of those. And so making sure people follow just basic rules of etiquette, one person talking, the other person not, both ways, you and them, making sure that you have a good reasoning for the decisions you are making, both in terms of your who you're subbing on and off, why you're doing this drill then, why you've picked this tactic over another tactic. If you have a good rationale and you can vocalize and share that rationale, you undercut a lot of the chances for people to be obnoxious with their arrogance. That's not to say you're always going to be right, but at least you've shared those ideas and they can understand better, and you've got some backing. Because if you have more knowledge, if you put more thought into it, when they are confrontational or when they are being irritating, you can shut them down quite quickly from a position of strength. But that's on you to a degree to also have those answers. And if you don't have the answer, make sure you share that you're going to think about it, go away, talk about it, but now is not the time to do it. But it's all about the culture you set up within your team as the team's leader on training day.
Cool. Anything else to add there, Jay? You happy with that?
No, I think it's just a really tricky one. It depends on how you are as a coach. Also, I think it's up to your other players to call it out as well, and have those discussions. Because there's arrogance and then there's making other people feel uncomfortable. And if someone starts to make other people feel uncomfortable, that alters the conversation into, you're ruining the team atmosphere, you're ruining our culture, which is a much harsher conversation, but it's still one that needs to be had, either by your coach, by your captain, or by one of your leaders.
What about lacking confidence then? You see those players that have got all the ability, all the skill, they're trying hard, They just seem to not have any confidence in themselves. What's your approach
Guilty
there?
again. So I think that's another one where lack of confidence, at a basis, they just need a lot of encouragement, especially if a person joins a team where they might have gone from being great at their uni team to maybe less good on a community team, or they've never played sport before and they're starting Quidditch. It's a lot of encouragement, a lot of positive feedback, a lot of verbal feedback. We forget how great it is to hear "well done." Now, and I'm sure James will agree with me here, this doesn't mean you go around saying "well done, good job" willy-nilly, okay? Because if you, and James will once again say it, if James gave me his praise all the time, it would mean nothing. So the one time he does say "good job, Jay," I know he actually means it. Still waiting to hear it, but you know.
I'm still talking about
working.
the one time he said to me, so
Yeah, keep working. But it's especially if they're low on confidence. You've got to say, even if they mess up, but the intention was there, I know you had the right ideas. That's the right position. You know, good job. You've got to build players up because you're trying to get them to believe in themselves. And I would much rather someone do a simpler drill and get some confidence than them have to run a tackle tunnel and get flatlined every time. And they go, keep trying, you know, you'll get there eventually. Okay, it's complimenting them, but putting them in an environment to succeed, because that's what sport's about. We're trying to put people in a position to be the best version of themselves, and that's what you as a coach, you as a captain, you as a leader should be doing, and that starts with self-esteem and self-confidence. Have the conversations. All right, I've had to have conversations as a leader with people that I have very little in common with. Okay, and it may shock you, I can be quite an abrasive person. But by going out of my way to have the chat, it's showing that person someone's bothered. The last thing you want is a leader who doesn't care about you. Because if they're the head of the team and they don't care, why should you? So it's about, basically as a leader, showing care, giving this person attention and building them up when they've earned it and when they deserve it. And the other thing, social time breeds confidence. The closer you are as friends, the more likely you are to take a chance and you know, feel better in training. Because great job from James, if you have no idea who James is, it's like, oh, cool, that person thinks I'm all right. But if you've, you know, met James, talked to James, know who James is, then that means more. And that is the same in any club. You need to be a close, you know, friendship, or at least respect for that praise to mean anything.
So I'm going to build on a couple of those points. From a personal point of view, it's a case of finding what motivates that person. So if they're lacking in confidence, you have to understand why. Because you can be very gifted and still lacking confidence. So finding what it is about them that is making them feel insecure, and then try to put structures in place, systems in place to help that. And that might be through buddy systems where you get, especially if they're new to the club, like pairing people up so they have someone to talk to on a more regular basis, getting to know your players better so you can help them with those issues. As Jay says, being supportive, like making the feedback, I referred to it earlier, the feedback you're giving, making it helpful. You might want to take a slightly nicer tone with people who are lacking confidence. You don't necessarily want to be harsh and crush them. But yeah, making sure that whatever you're saying is actionable so that they can do something to improve. And then when they do that, when they make an improvement, noticing it. If you've said, go away and do this thing and you'll get better at this by doing X, Y, Z, and they've done that, you need to be picking up on that. You need to be supportive and encouraging in that way. And as Jay says, that doesn't mean going, well done, everyone's great, wonderful, because everyone's not great and everything isn't wonderful. But when someone does genuinely improve themselves, that should be communicated, that should be shared, that should be celebrated. And I don't think that bit gets done necessarily enough. It's something I'm trying to work on. I know it's not something that comes particularly naturally to me, but it is one of those things that helps a lot. If people feel valued, they'll start to build confidence in themselves. Because if I, as the leader of the team, have confidence in you, and you respect and think positively about my opinion, and I've decided that that is worthy of this person, then that person will start to believe it themselves. If they're constantly reaffirmed that the people that they value the opinion of value them, you can't help but start to value yourself.
Yeah. Nice. That's touching. I feel all warm and fuzzy inside. Okay, so we've just had another one recently sent to us, actually. Question. Changing topics very, very a lot, I would say. Yeah. So this one is from, I mean, it's a strange person that sent it to us. Someone that's currently on Team UK, asking if you were to give someone, obviously aspiring for Team UK or X-Ban, what sort of things would you want to expect from a player? So in terms of any fitness benchmarks, any key tactics they should know, sort of what other sort of things you would be expecting from, maybe 3 targets. I'm not sure which one of you is more qualified to answer this question. Who would like to go first?
Shall I give the old view and you can give the new current view?
Yeah, go on.
Oh, that's good. Yeah.
So for me, the aim is slightly different in terms of Team UK and for X-Ban, or at least it has been historically. I think for X-Ban, you're looking for players with potential. So they don't have to be the ready-made product already. They don't even necessarily have to be tactically nuanced. You're looking for someone who is moldable and has a certain X factor in terms of their potential, who can then, with help and focus, can then build up to Team UK. So you're looking more in that instance for game intellect and the ability to pick up on things, as well as then your physical stats. So I don't need you to know what a compact defense is, or a 2-2 defense is, or what a change-up is, or any of that kind of shit. That's not important yet. You just have to have the ability to pick up what those things are when they're taught quickly, because those teams don't have enough time. They only meet once a month at best to deliver all that information. So you have to have the aptitude to build on that first. And then physically, you need to then be bringing something to the team. You need to have an attribute that sets you apart from the other 2,000 members of QUK or whatever onto it, to get onto X-Ban that first point. So a spark and the ability to be built upon. Stats in terms of stuff isn't as important. Like, you can benchmark players, but for me, it's not been that important, because the different roles and different scenarios require different things. And just because your stats are not necessarily as high doesn't mean you're not going to be effective. So an example would be me as a player on Team UK. My stats would not be that particularly great. Not the fastest, not the strongest, don't jump the furthest or whatever. But I would argue my mental stats made up for that to a degree. And those are obviously harder to quantify. So the stat I would be looking for is, which again is still harder to quantify, but looking for an ability to show an aptitude to learn. In terms of getting onto Team UK, it's the same thing. Ideally, at that point, you have the tactics. If you've gone through the X-Ban system, you would have done. If you're outside, you need to, again, be able to pick them up very quickly. But physical stats, in terms of run speed, strength, is harder. All you're looking for is a way to improve. So you can be baselined, and the expectation is at those levels that you would be improving constantly, because you've decided to put time and effort into it. But I can't say run the 100 meters in 12 seconds, because it's not that important.
Nice. So that's the classic view. What's the new and improved J. Holmes way of thinking?
Funnily enough, the new and improved view is very similar to the old view, considering myself and James have coached together for such a long time. I agree. It is looking for that spark that sets you apart, and also just effort to get better. There is no point saying, I don't know why I've not been picked up. If you've never asked anyone really for feedback, or in the nicest possible way, if I don't know you exist. If you play for Sterling, there's a good chance that if I watch your game, it's because I've decided that that's the one game I'll scout for your team, or because I'm busy looking at my Team UK players. So genuinely, asking me to watch you play and asking for feedback is a really big indicator for me that you want to go somewhere. Having an attribute that sets you apart, being exceptionally good at something, or the potential to be exceptionally good at something, is what will get you there. But it isn't what will keep you there. What keeps people in Team UK is continuing to push their own athletic abilities and their own tactical abilities. When I evaluate players, they basically get put into 3 categories. For me, that all begin with R, because I love that. So you're either a player that I'll need to reforge, which means what you have at a base level is fine, but I need you to play completely differently and think about the game in my way and in a completely different way. Okay, that's most people are at the reforge stage. The next stage is refine, which is you have a good tactical knowledge, you know how to play the game. Physically, you're somewhat there. Fundamentally, you should be pretty good. If you can't catch a ball, I will not pick you. I'm just putting that out there now. Okay, I can catch a ball, so nobody else has an excuse. And the last stage is the ready stage, which means you're ready for Team UK, and that's the point where you're coming in to compete for a training squad spot. So most people are at this reforge stage, and I don't need an ideal athlete or an ideal player. I need the potential for an ideal player and an ideal athlete. So the thing you need to focus on isn't impressing me or pleasing me by playing how I want you to. Play your own style, and I can refine you, reforge you from there. Okay? Because if you're super talented, I don't want someone to hem themselves in trying to play how I want them to. Okay? If you're an excellent one-to-one defender, don't play 2-2 zone, because that's maybe the flavour of the month. Okay? Show me what you're good at. If you're a great shooter, I want to see you taking a chance to shoot. All right? It's about showing off your skills. But I'm looking for people that aren't selfish as well. I think that's something when people are trying to impress, I'll be honest, me, when I'm watching, they try and do it all themselves. And to a point, that's fine. I get you're trying to show off. But if you're trying to do it all on your own, then you're not the right personality. A lot of people think that scouting takes months and months and months and months, and I'll look at your name and pine over you and wonder if you're good enough, and I'll have to talk to all of my really intellectual Quidditch friends. I know what I need to know about most people within 10 minutes. And to be perfectly honest, that's because I just know quite a lot about sport and the psychology of sport. All right, so just focus on being the best version of yourself. Focus on getting your skills where they need to be. I don't go out going, oh, I really need a new ball carrier for Team UK, or I really need a new receiver, or I really need a beater, but they need to be a woman. I don't do that. I'm going out just looking for the talented players. Okay, so if you play your best, someone will notice you. But it's a big community, okay? And something a lot of people need to accept is you're not going to make Team UK like that anymore. It's not 2013 where it's just show up and let's all have a jolly and hope for the best. Like, the jump up between being a good club player and a national player is quite big. But what I'm looking for is potential. I want to build for the future. So it's just focus on making your strengths really, really strong. But please, if you want me to ask you, ask me. If you're too scared to come and talk to me, the chances of us working on Team UK together are probably going to be a bit marred then, aren't they? All right, just come up, say, I'm playing soon. Do you fancy giving us a look and giving us some feedback? What you don't need to do is say, do you have any feedback for me, when you have no idea if I've watched you play? All right, because I will give you my generic response, which is your contact could be a bit better. All right? So just focus on being the best version of yourself. Don't try and get noticed. Let yourself get noticed.
Cool.
If I had thousands of pounds down, it would be a lot easier, but I don't. I've got a park in Clapham and some very keen people. So,
Yeah, that's brilliant. So that sort of brings us to the end of the questions that we've been sent so far. Yeah.
I've got a question for you, Dan. I've got a question for you. I'm turning the tables. So
We've got 5 minutes.
That's fine. As someone who's getting into coaching, Dan, or starting to get into coaching, what were you most anxious about when you started?
I think, it's that bit where you start talking and then you just start questioning in your own head what you're about to say, with the whole concept of what it is you're trying to teach. And if you're not completely clear what your goal is, and someone asks you that question, not to be, an ass like you were talking about earlier, but to genuinely just ask you the question, so what about this? And you go, I don't know. That's, and then it's happened, and then I've gone back and I've, found the answers, or we've worked it out.
But that's perfect, Dan, right? Like, you don't have to be the font of all knowledge. The attitude of, I don't know, is fine, as long as you then do the follow-up of, you went and found out the answer. Like,
well, I think
that's brilliant.
I think what I was able to turn that into, because obviously my background being a science teacher is, I don't know, let's find out. And then we sort of go on that journey of discovery together, as a team. And obviously they're then taking ownership of these ideas, so they can go, oh yeah, I mean, this doesn't work for us in that way. And like, obviously I play with Raptors and like do a bit of coaching with South Sea. Those things, I can't just go, this is what they do, because, we don't have those same players. I often got you two and Dan and Bill and Lucy just knocking around. I haven't got carbon copies of them. So we've got to change it to what best fits the people that are there. I'd say that's probably one of the biggest challenges. Yeah. That, and of course, not just wanting to get involved and just go, oh, just put a shirt on, run on the pitch and do it yourself, because you'd get so into it when you're on the side.
Doing that at Team UK was such a faff not playing. Like, yeah, because I could obviously, I wasn't playing, so I was stood on the sideline and I could see where the person should be standing. And that is very tricky. Yeah. Try and find 50% balance is what I found was helpful.
Yeah, I think it's you've got to keep learning, haven't you? If you stop learning and trying to improve, then you may as well be dead, probably.
What
a way to end.
Whoa,
wow. Yeah. Okay. Lovely. And on that note, again, in the background there is Back2Hoops website. You've got all your resources there, all of the videos, level up. It's all there for you to access, as James is doing right now. If you have questions, if you are too shy to just walk straight up to the angry bearded Jay Holmes at an event, maybe drop him a message through Back2Hoops. Drop us something here if you want to sort of, ease yourself in nicely. You've got
click
questions.
This lovely contact button. See, Dan, you just click this button right here, and then it takes you straight to us.
Ooh. Brilliant.
Yeah.
Okay.
Cool.
Yep. So we will see you in our next episode. Say bye, Jay.
You can't. He's muted. Bye.
Bye, Jay.